I want to tell you a story. I'm living in the late 18th century and I'm a duke in France. This memory has been in me as long as I can remember.
You're talking about a past life. You, reincarnation.
I don't believe in reincarnation. I'm merely stating the fact that I was a duke in France in the late 1700s.
You don't even speak French, do you?
I fathered twins with one of my servants. The mother died, the twins lived. A boy and a girl. They were the subjects of an experiment I came up with to prove to the world that children have no free will.
Welcome to Film Drifter. In this episode, we will be covering another relatively obscure film, Fogbound, from 2002. It was directed by Ate de Jong, a director with a very interesting career and with more than one cult favorite under his belt. Why Fogbound? Well, it is a film that showcases undeniable and unique qualities in more than one area, making it a worthwhile object of interest to be sought out by curious film enthusiasts. It is a film that intrigued me significantly more than Ate de Jong's other more acknowledged pictures, primarily Highway to Hell and Drop Dead Fred, which are quite different pictures in their own way. Also, the fact Fogbound remained less popular than the two previously mentioned compelled me to give this film an in-depth treatment, in the hopes that it can find new audiences and get the appreciation it deserves. It is a project with a very interesting, decade-spanning development history. It was finally made as a Dutch-UK production with some very prominent names in the crew, primarily production designer Ben Van Os, a frequent collaborator of Peter Greenaway, and Nigel Galt as the editor, who often worked with Stanley Kubrick, including editing Eyes Wide Shut. On the surface, it is a simple story about three characters trapped in a fog who begin telling each other stories. It's quite accurately described by the director. But the film brings so much more in the development and execution of this simple idea, making it a must-see for any adventurous film buff. The review is accompanied by an interview with the director, which he was very kind to give, covering in much detail the production process on this film. Be sure to check it out. Fogbound is a drama film about three mid-30s friends taking a road trip somewhere in the Alps in a van who end up stranded on a mountain road due to heavy fog preventing them from driving any further. Two of them are a married couple, Anne and Leo, played by Orla, Brady, and Ben Daniels, while the third character is Bob, their self-described best friend, played by Luke Perry of Beverly Hills 90210 fame, who tragically passed away recently after suffering a massive stroke, having been only 52 years of age. Brady and Daniels are Irish and British actors playing British characters who appeared to live in the USA, Leo being a lawyer working for charity organizations and Anne a mathematician, while Bob, a journalist, is their longtime American friend. Although the movie doesn't put much emphasis on this, it is peculiar enough and obvious from the accents they performed their roles with. The film was shot almost entirely on a fog-engulfed soundstage, giving it a unique atmosphere. As the movie progresses, we witness each character retelling various past events, revealing to us that Anne and Leo's marriage is falling apart, primarily over a dispute of having children. We also learn that Bob is a womanizer, but secretly in love with Anne. All ingredients for a recipe leading to a tragic resolution. Most stories involve the element of an unreliable narrator, and one story contains a sort of fantastical strain. The dialogues are excellent and excitable, examining some rather stimulating existential themes. The stories the characters retell, whose truthfulness we can't be sure of, are a clever touch, while the cinematography is quite original and arresting, including the eccentric production design, which is a visual treat. Although the film does end with a sort of whimper and fails to capitalize on the potent build-up, all the previously mentioned qualities alone make Fogbound more than a rewarding experience, even for a random film viewer. Because the film, while being intellectual and serious, does not fail to be entertaining and fun, and is far from a brooding experience. On the contrary, it manages to be playful and not to take itself too seriously, although Ate de Jong in our interview felt he might have been too highbrow with the story. I, on the other hand, think the film's resolution is its biggest flaw and one of the main culprits of the film's failure to achieve a wider recognition, not the overall ideas in the script, on which I'll elaborate in my review. As I previously mentioned, Fogbound is a project that was in development for over a decade, and in that time passed through several iterations, mostly the scope and approach in each one being heavily influenced by the available funds. It finally ended up being filmed almost entirely on a soundstage for stylistic purposes, and for a relatively solid budget as a part of a 3 films deal. Above all, it is a film that has aged very well visually and still remains quite striking to watch. It features a very peculiar combination of unconventional cinematography and Ben Vanno's eclectic theatrical production design, with many scenes, primarily those portraying stories, being almost symbolic in approach. When I say unconventional cinematography, it's in a more subtle way, through color palette, odd sets, usage of fog to hide and reveal a character, background transforming or blending with the foreground, and similar effects. The overall framing and camera movements are disciplined and traditional, but not in a bad way, because they make the occasional odd framing and transitions stand out even more. Where the film does feel dodgy is a couple of scenes where a green screen is used and some CGI to simulate a ladybug and a bee swarm. Everything else that was done in camera stands the test of time really well and hasn't lost its effectiveness. While the visual aspect of the film grabbed my attention initially, what helped to retain my attention was the script itself, which contains that hard-to-pin-down but very familiar flavor of authenticity and delivery. It is obvious that the writers either thought very hard about each line, or they had direct, real-life experience for specific dialogues.
You haven't been calling as often as you used to. Have I offended you in some way?
No, I've just been busy.
It's just, we haven't spoken since your birthday, and that must be 3 months ago.
Maybe I'm embarrassed at the extravagant gift you got me. That robe must have cost you a fortune.
Well, you're the only one I buy more expensive presents for than Leo.
Why do you suppose that is?
We set a limit on gifts for each other, but we never said anything about friends.
You and Leo have a lot of agreements.
Just one other.
What is that?
That we would always tell each other the truth, no matter what.
You always tell them the truth.
I want to divorce him, and I need your help.
I don't want to get in the middle of it.
No, you don't have to say anything. Just be there to protect me if I need it.
Why do you think it might get physical?
No, I'm not saying that. Just, I would feel safer if you were there.
I thought you loved him.
Yes. That's why I want to divorce him.
The performances themselves are very good, with maybe Daniels standing out to some extent. Orla and Daniels showcase the usual confidence of theater actors, and Perry, while not being particularly weak, appears less convincing in emotionally heightened scenes. On the other hand, he feels subtler and more effective in scenes where he has to react without saying a word. Some of this is touched upon in my interview with Ate de Jong, where he gives an interesting glimpse into the theater versus film acting approaches of the cast involved. The story is primarily an examination of a disintegrating marriage, but with a more challenging thematic approach. It does not deal with the loss of love, but on the contrary, with two loving individuals being unable to reach a compromise on having children, leading them to hurt each other out of spite and despair. Leo, the husband, is convinced that children have free will via a fantastical memory of a past life being a duke in France in the 18th century and performing an experiment on his twins. And since he believes he carries certain deviant character traits, he fears his children might turn out like him. But actually, these reasons appear less interesting than the effects his choice has on the relationship with Anne. Despite the fantastic story being rather compelling, the counseling sessions of Anne and Leo with psychiatrist, played by always reliable Joran Krabbe, are both poignant and difficult to watch, because they ring very true. Bob appears to be sort of an involuntary witness here, trapped in the fog with them. If one would be cynical, we could describe him as the third wheel. I feel the film fails to some extent to develop this character properly, and he appears more to be a tool and casualty of Anne and Leo's desire to hurt each other, than a fully fleshed out character. Also, his yearning for Anne fails to be supported by reasons the audience can sympathize with, and appear too much like shallow lusting, probably more than intended. Also, in the end, it doesn't seem that the experience in the fog was any sort of catharsis for him, which it was for the other two characters. There were several approaches to solving these issues. One could have been Bob's desire for Anne being more developed, with some past memory adding real weight to his love of Anne. Another one could have focused on Bob's failure to impact Leo or Anne in their choices, portrayed as some sort of punishment for past transgressions. One could argue for the second being present in the film, but I don't think the script makes a strong enough case for that. Also, as previously mentioned, the film's finale fails to take advantage of the events leading to it, and it almost feels like a different movie. To some extent, even stylistically, actually if watched outside everything that happened before it, the ending would probably leave a much stronger impression than it does. Standalone, it is a very well shot and written segment. The monologue is excellent, but it feels divorced from the rest of the movie and doesn't add to what has passed. Being the conclusion of the events the three characters previously experienced, trapped in that fog, it misses the opportunity to make a stronger point. In my opinion, a film, at least a conventional one, is a contained, distilled expression of an idea, with a beginning and an end, that should lead us to some sort of catharsis, new realization, and I feel this film stumbles in that sense, or at least muddles it in the end. Another problem that I had was that in the stories told by the three characters, when an element of false or unreliable memory was introduced, it was often revealed as such too soon. I felt that on at least 1 to 2 occasions, it could have been left more ambiguous. Now, I'm mentioning all these flaws merely as missed opportunities, as I don't think they seriously detract from the enjoyability of this film. They only hamper the film's ability to make a better case for itself. The way the stories the characters tell each other play out this idea of an unreliable narrator is really compelling, even if the illusion was broken one too many times by the writers. Each time they appeared on the screen, they feel excitable and remain effective on repeated viewing. Some of these stories are particularly original and moving, especially Bob's encounter with the overweight woman in the restaurant leading to sex, which he described as getting a glimpse of what true happiness might be like.
I'm not asking you to marry me. I don't even expect you to call me the next day. I feel very vulnerable right now. I could do with the company. The body of a man.
Tell me what you want.
Make love to me. Would you really want me? Like my body fills you with desire.
I shouldn't forget to mention the music, which was composed by one Frank Fitzpatrick, who doesn't appear to be an A-lister, but seems to be getting consistent work in the industry. The soundtrack definitely showcases an ability to work and deliver a wide range of styles, although it makes the soundtrack itself feel somewhat disjointed. There are definitely a few highlights that could be straight-out classic movie tracks. Burn the Aristocrats is a strings quartet sort of piece with a brooding, heavy atmosphere accompanying the French Duke scenes and reminding me in some parts of Philip Glass's Mishima soundtrack. And then there is the final glorious endings piece, appearing at the funeral, which is a wonderful piano and violin composition, very much in the style of Eric Sadie's Gymnopédies. In conclusion, the theme itself, the way the story was written, performed, and directed, with each part of the film attempting to do something different and interesting, all this professionally and skillfully executed on a solid budget, make Fogbound a satisfying experience to film enthusiasts. It is definitely a film worth being sought out. Fogbound seems to be difficult to find online. I happened to acquire a Thai release a while ago in a paper sleeve, but as I am recording this, I've noticed a Spanish dual audio release currently available online on Amazon, which I don't remember seeing before. Also, there appears to be a Dutch website, bol.com, that is selling another release, but I'm not sure if it's shipped outside the Netherlands. So at the moment, for the European territory, it's possible to acquire it via legal channels, and I'm sure some of these copies will crop up later on eBay. For the American territories, I'm afraid there doesn't appear to be any available options at the moment. Thank you for watching another episode of Film Drifter. I hope you enjoyed the content. Take care and drift well.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Oh, it's so weird. It sounds like you're in a church.
Rose, rose, rose red. Shall I ever see thee wed?
Shall I ever see thee wed? I marry that thou wilt when thou art dead.
Brilliant. We should tape this. Should you bring your tape recorder?
I think I left it with your camera.
Hey, look at this. If I move only a few feet away, you can't see me. And a few feet more, you can't even...
Oh, Leo, come on. What's this? Another game? Leo? Leo?
Hey, you guys, come on. Hey, you guys, come on. Leo? Leo? Ann! Ann! Do you hear me? Do you hear me?